Hey everyone, it's Sun Types, and it's that time again. We need to talk about live and Pokemon clients as a whole. I'm gonna talk about PTGO some and live, and also I don't know. That's about it. But yeah, because live is obviously bad, and we need to talk about what does a Pokemon TCG client really need. I actually talked about a video very similar to this when I mentioned Twin Leaf. Twin Leaf is well, it didn't happen. Essentially, I don't know if it's officially canceled. I guess it's not officially canceled, but they've people have left it. I think maybe only one person has left. It's weird. If you don't know what Twin Leaf is, it's a thing that was supposed to be developed by Dan TDM, but he hasn't really said anything about it. I think he's mentioned something, but he hasn't like posted anything on his YouTube channel, or done anything very public. I think he was on a podcast, but like yeah, I mean, if he had something to show, he would post it on not necessarily his YouTube, probably possibly his YouTube channel, but also on like some other public place like his Twitter or something. I don't really follow Twitter, but I know as of recording this, at least he has not posted anything about it other than that it exists. Yeah, this isn't about Twin Leaf. This isn't about live. This isn't about PCGO. Well, maybe it's about live. Hopefully, this is what live is gonna blossom into. For those of you who don't know, live has failed. I imagine pretty much all of you would know that. I don't know if it's objectively failed, but it has. It hasn't done. It's been a downgrade to Pokemon TCG Online in many ways. PCGO was the predecessor to Live, and it had I don't know, it generally just worked a little better and had more options. The main thing that we'll talk about, Live did have a few things better though, which is pretty nice. And I'm not going to talk about everything, but obviously something that the Pokemon TCG client needs is it actually needs to work. I'm not going to really talk about that. That's kind of assumed. Live doesn't work. It does not meet the basic needs. You can't. Not everyone can log in. There are consistent glitches. There's like lag. They're just not. There are major issues. As I said, people can't log in, but even if you do log in, sometimes the games just like crash a lot and stuff, which is really bad. I haven't had major issues with it, but I've had some. I have had major issues, but compared to some people, I haven't had major issues. There are certainly many game breaking glitches and stuff which just shouldn't be in there, but at the end of the day, that's like that needs to be fixed. And there is no question that that needs to be fixed, so there's not really too much point focusing on it right now. First of all, the economy, and this is the one thing that Live actually does really well. There needs to be some free card currency. You need to be able to play the game for free. PCGO and Pokemon TCG Live each had that, and Live is mostly, if not entirely, free. PCGO was kind of pay to win ish, but it was like not exactly. The weird thing is that you can like kind of spend money on them, but not directly, not in a way that makes Pokemon money. And that's a major issue for the practicality aspect of it. If Pokemon's not making any money, they don't really feel like the need to put as much money in. So monetization might actually be good for the game. Obviously, you don't want the game to be pay to win. That would be bad. And live is certainly not pay to win. I think if you think it is, honestly, just check out some other channels that give you guides to the economy. You shouldn't need guides to the economy for the game to work. That's bad. But I don't think Live's economy is that complicated. BTGO's was very complicated, but Live pretty much just. I know that you can buy products, notably the Shadow Rider Calyrex League, or yeah, Shadow Rider Calyrex Remax League Battle Deck. You can buy that. That very quickly converts your crystals into credits, and that is a good way to do it. From there, you can acquire most cards you want. I play essentially free, and I play a bunch, and I spend a bunch of in-game currency, and I'm essentially able to get everything I want. So especially in standard. If you're playing expanded, stuff's a bit more expensive, which we'll get to. But Live's economy, for the most part, is very good, and stuff is pretty affordable, which is very important. So you need a card currency as well. I don't think it would be bad if everyone got all the cards, but I think that takes the fun out of it for collectors, for anyone who likes the collection aspect, and also Pokemon doesn't necessarily want to do that. Games very rarely just give you all this stuff, especially ones with lots of stuff, lots of like content like TCGs. So it makes sense to have some currency where you can get the cards, though you shouldn't just have to randomly get them. But overall, I think Lives is pretty solid in that aspect. That being said, as I said, you could possibly have a monetized type of currency. That would be, in my opinion, that would be best for cosmetics. Cosmetics don't directly impact the game at all. You can make an argument that like, you could implement it in a way that does, but that's not really good. But anyway, so you can use this cosmetic currency, which should be one that you could pay money for, but you don't have to. These cosmetics should probably just be arts of cards. That's the main thing. Live does have a cosmetic currency, which is a free currency, which is not card arts. It's essentially useless. It does change your avatar. I don't know how much the stuff is, but I'm assuming it's pretty cheap. And you have a lot of that currency. It doesn't really do anything. So that cosmetic currency in live is bad. It's just kind of pointless. But then I think it would make sense because the different arts are a major part of the Pokemon TCG for some people. And that'd be really great if it had. That would be a way to monetize it because that doesn't hurt people if they just want to play the game. But then if you want to collect, you can spend money, but you also should be able to get the currency for free. But you shouldn't necessarily be able to get all the like everything for free without like grinding some. That's a part of the game. You should encourage people to play the game. So yeah, I think a paid currency that is a purely cosmetic currency would be really nice, as it doesn't hurt the game in any way because you can still play all the decks, but at the same time it encourages people to possibly spend some money if they really enjoy the game. Of course, right now that wouldn't really be good because live isn't really worth spending money on. But if live is making money, then Pokemon will want to spend more money, and then we'll get in a better cycle. Right now, we're in a bad cycle where the game's bad, people don't want to play it, then Live has less incentive to spend money, and it's just a downhill spiral. But it will be reversed if they do introduce some monetization, as long as it just is they're not like super money hungry about it, where they're like making everything locked behind paywalls, which would be bad. I think generally I like the fact that it's free to play, but it is having some downsides practically. In terms of formats that I want in the game, I think standard. I mean, standard has to be there, right? And I'm not really going to talk about. I'll mention the like a ranked versus casual ladder. I think I don't love the ranked ladders. It kind of encourages toxicity. At the same time, you just do still need an elo matchmaking system, though. You need to pair better players against better players and worse players against worse players, because if you're a new player and you just toss into a game, get some dude super good, you're just gonna like lose. That's not fun. You're just gonna lose over and over and over again, and you're not gonna get a chance to learn. You're gonna be losing by that much. Eventually you'll learn some, but really you should be learning against people who are the same skill level as you, which I think is super important. And if you don't like, a lot of people don't like playing the game super competitively. I don't love playing it super competitively, but I do enjoy playing good decks. But then some people just want to like mess around with like just decks that are just like not anywhere near as good. And then at that point, you should be playing against people who generally have that same mindset. Of course, you could have like smurfing, but that's not like a huge deal. I don't think. I don't know. I don't really play game. I mean, live that doesn't really happen as far as I know, but maybe it does. I consider myself I consider myself a good player. I haven't really played against anyone who. I mean, I feel like I could at least. I have a very reasonable chance of beating anyone in any individual game because Pokemon does have a lot of luck. Of course, I play decks that aren't very good, but that's for another day. I'm getting sidetracked. But standard needs to be there. With I'd say a non-ranked, because ranked and unranked does split up the player base. In some sense, it's good. I don't know if the casual versus ranked ladder has done something good for the community or not. I think it honestly hasn't done much of anything, which is fine. I don't think it's split it too thinly, but if you add more formats than it could, we saw that with Pokemon TCG Live and PCGO coming out at the same time, then the player base started getting split, and then that was bad because it got split too small, and then it was harder to find games. So I'd probably say an unranked ladder with a hidden elo, just for matchmaking, as well as and I'm not exactly sure how it should be worked, but it just needs to be pretty simple. I think PCGO's ladder was fine. The reward system wasn't good. It was kind of a mess, but I think you could go either way with that. But then standard needs to be the format. That should be the main format, but then expanded in some form. It could be live shortened expanded, which I actually think is better than full expanded. When you look at cards that aren't in live expanded, that aren't full expanded, you see a lot of really toxic cards. You see Vileplume, you see a lot of the banned cards are from that era, or some of them are at least. And you see Shaman EX, Battle Compressor, Versus Seeker, the A-Specs, which are all very, very, very powerful. Arguably, they're really fun, but they're super powerful. Arguably, very overpowered. I mean, Shaman's banned, but you got some really powerful cards, and then you get more powerful attackers newer, but I think they're more interesting. And I think you get the Spirit of Expanded Capped actually better in attack live with live expanded than regular expanded. Of course, there aren't friend matches, and isn't a ranked ladder, meaning that I'm doing some content on it and I'm just getting back into it, but it's not anywhere near as developed as standard, which in some senses is good, but in a lot of ways it's not, and it's also more expensive. But anyway, I think some form of expanded should be in the Pokemon TCG client, whether that be live or a newer one, or a Twin Leaf or PCG or whatever. Next up, GLC. Of course, GLC is a very popular format. It's not like the most popular. It's popular among serious players, which is kind of weird. It almost was created as like a fun format, like just a fun casual format, but it's moved to anything but that. It's become very competitive. It's become very um, it's honestly it's probably the hardest format to play that I can think of, because you have all what ofs, meaning that you have so many more complex, smaller decisions where there's not one clear right answer that's super obvious, versus standard. Generally, a lot of the right plays are very obvious. And I played much more standard than GLC, but like if I'm playing GLC, I don't necessarily know what the right move is all the time, or most of the time. Standard, I know pretty much all the time what the right move is, whether I make that or not. Sometimes I make mistakes and don't do that. Sometimes the decisions are a little more complicated, but for the most part, Standard's gameplay is relatively straightforward as long as you think about it enough. GLC is much more complicated, which isn't bad. GLC is a really cool format, and should probably be in whatever client there is, or some format that's very similar. A slower, more methodical, more interesting, and more complex format, such as GLC. You could look at certain legacy formats as well, which kind of fulfill that role. But yeah, I think GLC would be cool to have in the game. But then you also want a more laid back format, which would be something like themed. I don't know exactly what the other options would be, because there isn't really a format like that exists, or at least not to a large scale. Because it is like a laid back format isn't as like serious. It's not going to be as standardized either. So there's certainly some more sillier formats. But yeah, I think GLC a more serious format, and then themed a more like casual format, or probably not themed, but something, because they don't make themed decks, but something like themed would be really nice. Then legacy formats I mentioned, which are older formats. Legacy is a specific format in PCG, or was, but legacy formats are generally considered to be older standard formats. Legacy format wasn't actually an older standard format. You look at block formats, which weren't a thing before. Now they actually are, because of rotations later. But block formats are interesting, which are kind of like legacy formats. And you could have something like that. Just the ability, though, to play older cards is always good. I think the cards that should be playable should be the ones from black and white on. Before that, rulings get really bad, honestly, in my opinion. Not like wrong, but confusing, with trainer cards that aren't actually trainer cards. Or I guess they're like when it says trainer doesn't mean trainer. It's just confusing. There's a Vileplume that says your opponent can't play any trainers, but actually means items, because items weren't invented yet. Now that is an issue with tools, which is a bit of a pain, but I don't think it's as confusing, because now if you have an item that's a tool, it's not actually an item, it's just a tool, which is a bit messy, but it's only one thing. And that was a more consistent issue, or the earlier back you go. The earlier you go, the more confusing the rulings get, and honestly, the worse they get, because the game wasn't as developed, and so things are more confusing, and also people don't know those cards as well, except for like the base set stuff. But like after base set, people just like don't really know. Some people do, and that's fine. But and it doesn't mean they're bad either. I wouldn't have a problem with the older stuff, but I think it should be what the regular expanded on stuff should be. The GLC on so all those cards should be implemented, and they're not, which is a problem for us for many things, because you should have unlimited, as I said here, with friends. You should be able to really cook up whatever you want on your own. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's good or what people want, but if you have unlimited, you can do silly, wacky stuff. Live doesn't have that. Live, for some reason, you can't play expanded matches with friends. I have no idea why that's the case. It would be way better if you could, but you can't. It's not like it kills the formats or anything like that, but it means that a bit more serious and a bit more casual play, like with friends also, you can't do that, and that's just not fun. Last thing here is rotating formats. You can't have like 10, it's only 20 different formats at the same time. The Pokemon player base is just not big enough for that just yet. Hopefully we'll get to that point, but it's not there yet. So you could have a few main formats like standard, expand, GLC, themed, or some equivalent. Then you can have some rotating format that like so you have 5 formats, and that fifth format will be changing. So it could change between various legacy formats. You could change it to like just lots of weird stuff, and Pokemon could mess around. They can experiment because really there's only one format supported right now, which is standard. And standard's not a bad format; it's a cool format, but Pokemon should try to make more formats, and they did with that like alternate format rulebook thing. So they could do those like single prize. You could do singleton. You could do a wide variety of things. You could stick GLC in a rotating format. That'd be fine as well. Although GLC, of course, has its more dedicated fan base. So I don't think sticking in that rotated format would be a rotating format style thing would be good. I think it should either be its own thing or should just be playable through an unlimited with friends style thing. Next up, the testing decks feature is for some reason really bad as well. It should have better AI. This is more of a critique to Live and PTGO and anything. There is no test deck feature against an AI anywhere, as far as I'm aware, that's like actually somewhat competent. Both the Live and PTGO AIs aren't really AIs. They just play all their cards and lose, honestly. Like you can literally not do anything in the game and you still win because your AI opponent will just draw and then deck out and lose. So that's a bit unfortunate. And then also, you should be able to test against a deck in the same format. And overall, just like a computer AI would be really nice. Custom settings would be cool. But I think some cool like computer mode would be nice as well. There was is it Trainer Road? I don't know. There was something in PCGO. I don't remember the name of it. It wasn't particularly good, but you'd play against these like computer decks, and you'd have it was almost like a story mode. It was a really bad story mode. The story wasn't really. I don't know if it had a story. I couldn't really tell, but that was a thing. It was kind of fun. It was kind of weird as well. But you could actually have like you could have a tournament where you play against different gym leaders, which is also makes the gym leader challenge format kind of weird, where you could have a gym. It's not actually about gym leaders. It kind of is, but not really. But you could have like a gym leader challenge type thing where you play against different gym leaders who have not in the GLC format, but a thing where you play against actual gym leaders. Like say Misty has a deck with Starmie and I don't play the games or watch the anime. I don't remember what her Pokemon are. Is it like I don't know. I know she has Starmie, and so you could have like the gym leaders you play against those gym leader inspired decks, which are cool. You could even have original characters, which PTGO did, which is weird, but it was fine, I guess. It was strange. Um, but that's kind of how they're pushing to because they don't necessarily have the rights to all this stuff. I'm not sure where all that stuff stands, but anyway, I think some like cool computer battle style stuff is really necessary. PTGO took a little stab at it, but a really, really underwhelming one. And PTG Live also kind of has that. Nothing else has that. I think Twin Leaf, if that could have it. I don't think that's going to be added to Twin Leaf, unfortunately. If we ever get Twin Leaf, as I said, I'm a bit doubtful on that one. They say they're working on it, but we haven't seen anything, which is a bit unfortunate. But anyway, next up we got platforms. So this is a really big thing, and I think this could drastically change game because and this is something Twin Leaf certainly can't do. They cannot make it for the Switch, but they can definitely do like a computer and mobile thing. Live has computer and mobile, and PTGO you could play it on tablet but not phone, which is kind of weird. Although you could like do weird stuff. I've heard. I don't know if that's actually true, but anyway, so it needs to be on the computer and the phone. That's like super important. Pokemon doesn't actually play very well on a phone. It's not made for it. If you played Marvel Snap on the phone, that is made for it. It's a phone game. You can play it on computer, but it's made for phone because it's faster and overall it like fits more into mobile gaming type things. But live on the phone is really bad. It just doesn't work. But on top of that, it's very slow. Pokemon's a slow game. I'd say that's very subjective and doesn't really an arbitrary, but I would say that it is a very slow game, and I think most people would probably agree with that. It certainly is not a fast game compared to mobile games. It takes at least 10 minutes per game, assuming like not weird disconnections or quitting early. But then also I think it should be on the Nintendo Switch. This would be really cool. The Switch is very important to Nintendo, and the or any Nintendo console, I should say, if they come out with a new console and handheld and stuff like that, because Pokemon is obviously a major brand, and this would get their name out there. This would be the biggest thing, honestly, I think that Pokemon could do to honestly fix the TCG. The TCG is doing all right. I mean, competitive's doing well, but like competitive's just a very small part of it. Honestly, it's bigger than it like should be. Not that competitive shouldn't be big, but everything else should be generally competitive. I imagine should be only a small portion of the player base. But honestly, a lot of the people who aren't competitive players have been like since COVID, haven't really had as many opportunities. They have some, but live hasn't, or Pokemon hasn't converted the big kick up in players from COVID. Since COVID, they've kind of had IRL tournaments, which is fine, but that's obviously not at all what it was like playing during COVID. And then they stopped the Players Cup, they stopped the team challenge. The team challenge was pretty bad, but they stopped the Players Cup, which also wasn't great. Players Cup was fine, I guess, but they stopped the online events. They stopped obviously PTCGO, and they have live, which is pretty underwhelming. And then a lot of content creators kind of like stopped making the online content or reduced it. I mean, okay, no, they didn't like stop it. Most of those content creators still make online content through PTCG Live, but it's not. Then they also play IRL, which is fine, but not like the main focus of most players, right? Most people don't play competitively. But anyway, I think the Switch would reach that audience, that more casual audience who really loves Pokemon. Like, they will play this. They played the Game Boy, what was it, Game Boy Advance, or was it regular Game Boy remake? I don't know. There was some remake, and people played it. And that got more hype than Live because it was on the Switch. And so at the end of the day, the Switch is the place that Live needs to end up, or whatever Pokemon TCG client is, because people love the Switch. People love Pokemon, and then you can actually get the Pokemon fan base from you can grow it. You can get the greater Pokemon fan base into the TCG fan base, and that'd be really cool. So they actually play the game. Some collect it just cause, but like Pokemon's really cool. Obviously, I mean, I love the Pokemon TCG. Live it's not good, but it's how you can play the Pokemon TCG, and that's how I play the Pokemon TCG. So I like live. I mean, I kind of hate live, but I also like live because it's how I get to play the game. If there wasn't live, I just wouldn't be able to play Pokemon anywhere near as much. But I think a new client, I don't know if they need a new client. They could just change. They can completely overhaul live. I hope we're not just in this downward spiral, though, that we've been in since the creation of PTCGO, which PTCGO was not great. And live is obviously generally considered worse. There are some benefits as to the economy, but that's it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts down below as well, because we need something to change the Pokemon for a Pokemon client. Twin Leaf was kind of proposed as a solution. I don't know. It was strange whether Twin Leaf was either supposed to be. It was proposed during people's biggest hatred for live, I'd say, because people really hate live. Understandably, it doesn't work. But yeah, so I don't know if Twin Leaf was directly meant to address those issues, or was made out of complaint for those issues, or was just a thing that happened to coincide when people were really not looking up to live very much. But I think it's interesting. Twin Leaf is a potential. And we haven't really seen anything else like it. We have seen TCG 1, I guess, which is not popular. We've seen, I mean, it's not like no one plays it, but I don't think many people do. I don't play it, and I don't know many people who do. Untap, again, is different. It's not particularly great. There's the Limitless Simulator or whatever, but that's not really anything. That's just like a glorified version of PowerPoint. So that's fine, but like, it does what it does well, but it doesn't do very much, which is fine, but it's whatever. So we're looking towards live as the solution, which is a bit unfortunate, but live is the solution. If they add it to the Switch, if they add some monetization that isn't like overwhelming, that would be really good. I think we could finally see success from live if those two things happen. But overall, I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, consider subscribing. If you do, that helps out channel a lot, and I'm looking forward to making more content in the future. As always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.